30 years ago, Bill Clinton announced in Prague his intention to expand the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. March 12 will mark a quarter of a century since we joined NATO, and the former US president will attend the festivities linked to this anniversary as he will deliver a speech at the international conference titled "Our Security Cannot Be Taken for Granted." What else is he planning during his visit? How far have we come in terms of the relationship between our countries? And what next moves can we expect on the geopolitical chessboard? These are some of the main topics of today's interview. I'm Pavlína Horáková. Welcome to Epicentrum. It is with great pleasure that I can welcome in our studio the Ambassador of the United States to the Czech Republic, Bijana Sabeta. Hello, and thank you for making time for us.
Oh, it's a pleasure. Thanks for inviting me.
Let's first dive into the latest hot topic, which is the visit of former US President Bill Clinton. What can you disclose about his visit here in Prague?
Well, first of all, as we know, this is a very special year. The Czech Republic joined NATO 25 years ago, so it's a very important moment for the Czech Republic, for NATO. And so this occasion, we're thrilled that President Bill Clinton will be here in Prague and to celebrate this occasion at the castle, and there's some other activities planned.
The other activities I'm interested in, because we know when he visited 30 years ago, his main goal was, of course, the summit of the Visegrad Group. But in addition, with meeting with the leaders of with the political leaders, he also visited the U Zlatého Tygra beer hall and the Reduta jazz club, where then Czech President Václav Havel presented him with a saxophone, and famously Bill Clinton played the song "Summertime" and "My Funny Valentine." So I'm interested in, will he have a chance to, have some informal fun? Is there anything planned for him? Is he bringing his saxophone?
These are all excellent questions, and I don't have anything to share on this. The organizers will be releasing this information shortly. But, this story you shared about President Clinton playing the saxophone, I hear the story all the time from Czechs. They remember hearing the story from their parents, or they remember these stories when they were younger. So clearly it was a special moment then, and I'm thrilled he's coming back.
Are you personally going to be joining the former President Bill Clinton?
Yes, I'll be at the castle for a lot of the festivities on the 12th of March, and so stay tuned for other activities being announced.
According to two sources of Lidovky.cz, the cost of the trip will be taken care by Czech billionaire René Holeček. Could you confirm this information?
I'm not close to the details of the organizers and all of that. I'm familiar with some of the reporting, but really I don't have much to offer on this.
Last question about this. Do you have information about if his wife Hillary is coming with him?
I haven't heard that. Yeah, I've met Secretary Clinton before, and but I have not heard if she's coming or not. I don't believe that's the case.
Since we're talking about Bill Clinton visiting here, also information today, new information is that the Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk and Polish President Andrzej Duda will meet with US President Joe Biden at the White House on March 12th. Our representation is still waiting. So my question is, are there any trips planned to the White House or from the White House?
There's nothing to announce at the moment, but there has been so much engagement and interaction between our two countries at the highest levels. President Biden met with Prime Minister Fiala a year ago in Warsaw. I was back in D.C. when Secretary Blinken met with Foreign Minister Lipovsky. It was an outstanding set of meetings. Secretary of Defense Austin has met with Defense Minister Chernakova several times. Minister Sikala has met with his counterparts in Commerce and in Department of Energy. So there's been a tremendous amount of activity, and we're going to continue to do this going forward.
You mentioned that we are celebrating the 25th anniversary of the Czech Republic joining NATO. NATO obviously played a crucial role in maintaining peace and stability in Europe. But my question is, what challenges do you believe that NATO will face going forward?
Well, today we can see that NATO at 75 years is stronger than ever. It is the most important defense alliance in the world. And we're very pleased that it's not only growing with the soon-to-be addition of Sweden to the NATO family, but we have a NATO that's more unified, that's stronger, has more countries have reached their 2% pledge and are exceeding it. The Czech Republic, I would like to commend for passing a historic piece of legislation last year to reach this 2% investment, and we can see that NATO is just getting stronger.
You mentioned a 2% investment from GDP. I have to mention something that the former president and most likely one of the candidates for the office in this presidential race, Donald Trump, he said that he would encourage Russia to, and I quote, do whatever the hell they want to NATO allies who don't contribute enough. What did you think when you heard this, and should we be worried?
You know, I will say that this is unacceptable. I mean, this was also campaign rhetoric, so we have to keep this in mind. President Biden has made it very clear that we stand with our NATO allies. We will defend every inch of NATO territory. And we also know that other NATO allies feel exactly the same way. We are committed to this alliance, and I think it's important not to get distracted by what a potential candidate says on the campaign trail.
But now, when we know that United States, their help is very crucial for the situation that is happening for more than 2 years now in Ukraine. According to the Institute for the Study of War, the delays in Western security assistance to Ukraine are likely helping Russians' offensive. Joe Biden has been urging the Congress for months to approve the aid to Ukraine. And we know that the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, with his country outnumbered and outgunned, has been pleading with the United States to replenish its weapon stock. In an interview with NBC, Zelensky said, without American assistance, we will lose a lot of people, we will lose territories, and we know that it has been happening. Let me remind our viewers that Avdiivka that been taking away from Ukraine. So how do you perceive this, and what message does this send to the allies?
President Biden has been very clear on this. It is imperative that the Congress passes this package. It is very, very important that we stand with Ukraine and help them protect their sovereignty, their independence, their democracy, and protect Ukrainian people. So this is imperative. I am optimistic that a package will be coming, but this is the imperative.
But we know that the House of Representatives, there is the close majority of Republican Party, which is now holding back on this decision. So what happens if it doesn't go through?
Well, let me clarify this. In addition to President Biden's leadership, we have bipartisan support out of the Senate, as you know.
Yeah.
Democrats and Republicans came together very quickly to pass the budget, the package, excuse me. And it is understood that there's bipartisan support in the House of Representatives. That is very clear. So it's not a majority of one party or another party that's holding this up. There's bipartisan support, and now the Speaker needs to bring this bill to a vote.
We mentioned Donald Trump, we mentioned, of course, Joe Biden, the President of the United States. I have a question about the presidential race that is happening right now in the United States. At this moment, you have an 81-year-old and a 77-year-old frontrunners for the presidency. They are the oldest people that ever ran for the president, breaking by 4 years the record that they set themselves. My question is, there's 34 million people living in the United States. Are these two really the only ones who are up for the job? Is there a leadership crisis, or how do you explain that? Because I bet that people are asking you about this.
Well, look, the democratic process in our country, like other democracies, there's a process, and parties have primaries in some cases. It's also the case of our system. And the system is clearly has engagement on this topic. Voters put forth who they want to see in office. It is not clear who the primaries are going to result on the Republican side, but there is a process, and whoever ends up being the representatives of each party as we head into the general election, it's not really for me to decide. It's for the American voters in this case to decide, and if they decide that's their representative going into the general election, that's their representative. So it's not really for me to decide.
Does it worry you when you look to your country as a son of immigrants yourself? Does it worry you the situation that is happening now at the borders with the whole humanitarian crisis or humanitarian issue with people standing at the borders trying to, come to the country illegally?
Well, I will come back to that in a second. Let me just add one more thing on the other question about our general election. You know, now that I've been an U.S. ambassador for a year, a little more than a year, I must say I'm not a political person. I represent all Americans, but I am so proud of the Biden-Harris administration for their policies and their real investment in our alliances. And clearly it's making an impact. So I wanted to make sure I clarified this point. You know, as you're right, I am the son of two immigrants. In many ways, I am a kind of classic American story. I think it is my parents' dream to see me in this role representing our country. My parents are also American citizens. So it's a big part of the American story of being able to do these types of things, and it's seemingly, for me, it's a dream come true to represent my country in your country. The border situation in the southern border in the United States is an area that President Biden has acknowledged is something that he cares deeply about. The Senate proposed a piece of legislation to deal with the border, a bipartisan piece of legislation. So there is increased attention on dealing with the southern border. But at the end of the day, what makes the United States strong is our diversity. The immigrant story into the United States is part of the fabric of our country, our culture, what makes us unique, and what has created so much of the beauty and the value of our country. So my expectation is that this diversity that is part of the American story will continue. You said it yourself, it's been over a year since you arrived in Prague with your wife Lauren and your dog Sam. How would you describe your first Czech year? Look, I have the best job in the world. I really believe this. I mean, it's an honor of a lifetime to me to do this work in the Czech Republic. Living here has been amazing, and doing this work with our Czech partners in the government, in the business community, in civil society, across the board here in Prague and outside the city and all the regions, it's really been incredibly rewarding and on a personal level, deeply fulfilling. You have a vast experience in the private sector as an investor. What inspired you to actually, pursue a career of diplomacy? You know, for me, it was giving back to our country. I've been involved in politics for a significant amount of time. And so when I was asked to do this role, and I'm so proud to have the president's trust as his representative here in the Czech Republic, a very important ally and good friend to the United States, for me, it was a no-brainer, as we say. On one hand, the Czech Republic's government signed an agreement with the United States to acquire 24 F-35 fighter jets as part of the deal worth about 150 billion Czech korunas. The biggest single purchase for the Czech military, so big success. On the other hand, even you expressed a disappointment from Washington House being dropped out of the tender of the nuclear units in Dukovany. Would you still consider this year a success in terms of Czech-American business relations? Absolutely. I mean, our relationship has never been closer. It is clearly stated by Foreign Minister Lepavsky and others in the Czech government. I feel the same way. I know very much that our country feels like our relationship has never been stronger. We are so proud to be working with the Czech Republic on so many important topics across so many sectors in defense, energy security, business ties, economic relations have never been stronger, academia, exchange programs, so the list goes on and on. So I'm very proud about all that we've accomplished together. What's next? What is the next big thing or big priority that you want to focus on? You know, this, of course, we're celebrating the NATO 25th anniversary, so this is a very important topic. So this was something that is a big priority for us this year. Strengthening NATO's eastern flank is going to continue to be an area of cooperation. We also cooperate on cybersecurity, law enforcement, health, science. We have delegations going to the U.S. this year. We have congressional delegations coming to the Czech Republic that will announce its forthcoming. So we have a lot of activities this year, so really more to follow. When you look at Czech Republic as a former investor, although I think you're an investor for the rest of your life, in your heart maybe, when you look at Czech Republic, what do you see as the biggest strength? What do you see that can have a big potential, let's say, potential of a global success? You know, I've now spent a lot of time in the Czech Republic with tech entrepreneurs in particular here in Prague and Brno and throughout the country, and I see so many qualities that are very familiar to me that I see in Silicon Valley and other thriving tech hubs. There's technical expertise, there's successful tech investors, there's strong university support for private industry and educating young people on new technologies like quantum, AI, clean tech, etc. So I'm very optimistic about the opportunities for Czech technical tech-based startups in this country.
I have to say, I appreciate one thing when I look at your social media and when I read about what you do, and that's that you are not staying in Prague. You're visiting all the regions of Czech Republic. You're almost visited all the regions, very close. So I'm interested in what surprised you, what maybe you didn't expect about Czech people, about Czech landscape, about your Czech experience.
You know, I think there are a number of things that come to mind with this question. One is how much we have in common. You know, whether I'm meeting with students in Prague or elsewhere in Ostrava, we care about similar issues. We care about our shared security. We care about the climate. We care about what the future holds, and can we keep our democracies strong? I was so pleased to see how many young people were engaged in your last presidential election here in the Czech Republic. I don't know for sure if it was the highest, but it was exceptionally strong. And we can see how important young people are to the future of democracies, and we see the same thing in our countries. So we have so much in common, and for me, this is really nice to see.
I imagine that when you knew that you're coming here, there was a certain period of time when you were preparing for this role. So I imagine you were reading up about Czech Republic, and I know you even talked about in some interviews about books you read and stuff. But what was the, you know, what you expected and what was the reality? Was there anything that really you did not expect was different?
Certainly, I did a significant amount of reading and preparation before I came to the Czech Republic in January of last year. But now being here and working with my colleagues at the embassy, American colleagues, Czech colleagues, doing this work every single day, I've learned much more than I could in some textbook back in the United States. And I really understood Czech history in a deeper level, Czech-US history, what's at stake for democracies in Central Europe, and particularly here in the Czech Republic. So I feel like my education has accelerated significantly since I've been here. Yeah.
You know, Czech people are considered not that friendly at first. Did you have that experience?
I did. You know, this comes up occasionally when people say, "How do you, respond to Czech, outreach and attitudes?" Look, I may have a very biased point of view because I'm so happy here and my role allows me to meet lots of people. But I have to say, Czech people are so friendly. I know they've been so kind to my wife and I. And I also know Czech people love dogs. This is like 100% true. And so for me, it's been a really warm welcome, and it continues.
Since you mentioned dogs, you have your dog, Sam. How is he handling staying in Czech Republic?
He loves it. He really loves it. He's learning a few Czech words.
Oh, really?
Yeah. When I go to the park with him, I could say, Pojďsem? Yeah, and he comes, and so it's nice. He's learning a little bit.
So he's going to be bilingual maybe at some point.
I hope so.
That would be amazing.
At least one of us will, yeah.
I found a short read written by you in 2017, titled Not Alone Anymore.
Oh.
You opened up about the harassment and bullying that you encountered when you were small in the public school. And bullying is a quite relevant topic right now in Czech Republic. And so I was wondering, how did this experience influence your life? And if you could, what would you say to, little Bijan in that public school to maybe make his experience better?
Thank you for bringing this up. It was a moment that I felt, I wanted to share back then because of what was happening in the United States at the moment. But really, bullying is happening everywhere. We're certainly not immune from it in the United States, and from what I'm understanding, it's certainly an issue elsewhere as well. But I think the key thing for people is to feel like they're being heard, that they have people that they can count on that will have their back. And so I would probably tell the next generation, or tell that version of myself, to look for people that really are deeply there for you. And that would be my advice.
Really, we touched on it a little bit. Your mother immigrated from Korea and your father from Iran. You put it yourself in that same read. You said unlikely couple. How was growing up in such environment and surrounded with two very different cultures? How was that for you?
It is an unlikely couple, and sometimes we joke because my wife is, her parents are from Ireland and Italy. So our joke is that our kids are like a science project because of all the different ethnicities. But growing up, you know, my parents had this love of the United States, the American dream and ideals. And, you know, my father grew up in a place where democracy was not how he grew up. My mother grew up in a place where she had this so much gratitude to U.S. service members that saved her country from communism. And so this was my upbringing. You know, I remember when they were studying to become U.S. citizens. I was quite young, of course, but I remember how proud they were and bringing home the American flag and feeling like they were Americans. They are Americans. And so this was my upbringing.
How did you speak at home? Because you don't speak Farsi or Korean, right?
I don't, and this is it's kind of a pity. But you know, they didn't come with family. They came on their own to do their work here, and you know, so English was their common language, and as a result, I didn't really learn much, if anything, which I know is a shame on some level. But we just spoke English in the house.
Last question, what is it that you're looking forward most in the near future?
You know, I really am trying to cherish every single day I'm in the Czech Republic. Clearly, at some point, my tenure will come to an end, as these things do. So while I'm here, I'm all in on my commitment to U.S.-Czech relations.
As you mentioned, I have to add, how big is the chance that if Donald Trump will be voted in the office as the next president of the United States, is there a chance that you could stay here, or is it most likely that you're going to have to leave?
You know, my role, the U.S. ambassador's role, is really serving at the pleasure of the president. So this is something the president will decide. But it is really, I don't think, constructive to think about possibilities or speculation of who's going to be the next president. Really, there's so much work to do right now, and that's really where my focus is.
That was the American ambassador, Bijana Sabeta. Thank you for making time for us, and I hope I'll see you anytime soon.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
A to už je z dnešního Epicentra vše. Já nám připomenu, že záznam tohoto dílu společně s těmi ostatními naleznete jako vždy na blesk.cz. Já se s vámi pro dnešek loučím a těšíme se opět příště. Na viděnou.